Gentlemen, yeah, welcome to the Wrestling Den of the. You guys are the Wrestling Den is on. I am your host, as always, my Joe Me and Ricky Savage. And with me is my co-host,
Nikolai Jerka. Up. 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 Off. Thanks for having me, Rick.
Anytime. Thanks for joining me, Nick. So I guess we'll get right into it. If you guys want, you don't want to miss all the action. We are live every Thursday. Please go follow us on Facebook at the Wrestling Den, on Twitter at Wrestling Den TM. Please go follow our host as always. We appreciate them, Ron and Eric. They are at Sports Unfolded. They are live every Friday at 6 p.m. You can go follow us on Anchor, Spotify, and Google Podcasts if you want. Hey, you can just go follow us around the supermarket. We really don't care. But I wanted to get into a momentous occasion. So first off, I'm going to start off with a down note. I just want to say rest in peace to Bobby Eaton, who had passed away this week. So giving a little bit of respect to him. That's not the momentous occasion, by the way. That's yeah. The momentous occasion is I actually watched a full episode of AEW Dynamite, and I'm proud of myself because that was a very hard thing for me to want to do. Again, so
Pat McAfee was the problem.
I know that's probably the best part. So I will say, with AEW Dynamite, I didn't know what to expect as far as like, what am I going to get, because I haven't really been into the fold. But I figured if we're going to be following CM Punk and Daniel Bryan on this journey to see where they end up, whether it's AEW or not. I feel like last week when we talked about like all the potential losses that they had with like Bray Wyatt and possibly Adam Cole. I feel like I was too excited last week. It was too fresh for me. So I wasn't really able to sit back and like think about Vince's perspective and just WWE as a company in perspective. I kind of was like, oh, all these things in AEW, all these guys could go to AEW now that they're released. 2020, 2021, they came out with pretty much the full roster that they had released, like all the people from staff to wrestlers, what have you. It's a pretty big list. And there's only a couple signings, at least for 2021, I would say. Recently, with all the names that have been released, there's only been 2 signings of guys within like the last few months. So I know everybody's like, oh, AEW is taking up all these WWE guys. But if you actually look at the bigger picture, they really haven't taken a lot of these names that have been released, So like Bray Wyatt is talked about, Braun Strowman's talked about, obviously Daniel Bryan being talked about, but there's no, even with Adam Cole, there's just no concrete proof. You know what I mean?
Right.
That these guys are gonna go there.
Yeah, nothing. Like you're saying, nothing is definitively taking place. No big arrivals, and any of the other ones that they do, like Big Show or Mark Henry or Christian. It's like I would say the Aleister Black one was probably the first release that translated directly into someone showing up on.
And that a lot of people are saying like, did he, is he following a no compete clause type deal or whatever? Like the dude's on TV. This isn't 1996 where you're guessing like, oh man, is Diesel and Razor Ramon going to be on like WWE even though they're on WCW? Like that kind of stuff. Like
Right.
no, it's 2021. I'm pretty sure like whatever fell his clause was probably like Daniel Bryan's, where he can compete whenever he wants after the 30 days and the 30 days is up. That's why he's on TV now, because obviously he's good to go. It's not like, oh, well, maybe, I don't know. Like, it just, some guys had it lucky, like Dylan Bryan and possibly Aleister Black had it lucky to where they had that no compete clause and time was up. So they could just jump ship and, be on TV within a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know what you're saying. You're kind of waiting for the big migration type thing where it's like more than just one at a time. It's actually like here's 12 WWE NXT guys who got released, right? And you're thinking,
I mean, that they pretty much wiped house. Did you see that they released what was it, Bobby Fish was one of the biggest names that were released on that list?
that was a bunch, honestly, and it's they can't be honest and forthright about their finances at the moment for whatever reason that is, and it's like they're not struggling financially to an extent, and to release all these guys, it's weird. How do you build future stars if you let go of half of your future roster? That's not to say all those people are going to be a number one, main eventers or something, but um, it's just hard. You limit your pool for sure of potential candidates. It's like even bigger ones like that. It's like you really think like you and I could come up with the storyline for the Fiend or Bray Wyatt or whatever to get him on TV, something that's interesting and gripping to the audience, and it was never hard to get him over. I think they just were like, meh, 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 and then they gave his gimmick to Alexa Bliss and then kicked him to the curb. It was strange,
I
and
mean,
so
does that story even work though? Like, so think about it like this: like take out all the aspects of like the Fiend and stuff. Just say that you have your character has a backstory where somebody else is the mentor of that backstory. Like they started it off, so they even have their own thing in that same universe. Like let's just take Bray Wyatt and the Fiend. So he comes up, he's got the Fiend gimmick, and he becomes the Fiend. So the Fiend is a big part to Alexa Bliss becoming who she is now. So if somebody takes you under their wing, under their tutelage, and then all of a sudden they're just unceremoniously ripped out of that same story within that universe, does it still make sense? Does the story still make sense
I mean,
without
there's
the
what happened there.
predecessor?
You could have a moment where some kind of power is transferred from him, the idea of the Fiend, the image of the Fiend, to um to Alexa Bliss or something like that. But I mean, a lot of that Bray Wyatt Fiend stuff is a suspension of disbelief. Necessary that it makes 100% sense, just that it's entertaining and just that it's a little gripping and suspenseful. To me, when it comes to dark personas and dark storylines and stuff like that, I don't think it's 100% necessary for it to make sense. Does the Ministry make sense? When you go back and watch it,
No, but it was cool.
yeah, exactly. You'll go, oh, what are these symbols on the Acolyte's chest? What significance does that have? You can be like,
What's with this guy with the blonde
like,
mohawk? That's huge.
Little horns on my little thing, the Taurus symbol on my chest. It's like, cool, Farouk. You do you.
Hey, listen, that was the one time where Undertaker like pulled a Chris Jericho where he had his hair in the bun and it was cool. Like that Undertaker, like to me, is like
he only had like this part, so he's got facial hair, but he's got no mustache. So he's got just like this part. And you're just like, yikes, dude looks 100% different with a different set of faces.
And he's got, dude, he was heavy in the guy liner then. Heavy in the guy liner.
There's an example for you of a storyline that, like the Ministry. So Ministry's rolling, Midian and Viscera and the Acolytes, and I think the Brood had already left.
Yeah.
But then Undertaker's all hurt. And then there's this storyline on Raw where...
Hey, the Brood were brooding, by the way.
Right. And Vince McMahon tells Undertaker he's going to compete in this match because Vince McMahon says so. And then Undertaker says, well, I don't have to do anything you tell me to do. And he essentially quits during an interview and walks out of the building. And then you don't see him again until he comes back at Judgment Day, chokeslamming everybody. So what's weird is like when Undertaker left during that storyline, the Ministry, they just dissolved it. Everyone just went and did their own thing. Viscera and Midian were still like together. The Acolytes obviously turned into the APA and stuff like that, but like for the driving force behind his cult, his congregation to just leave, they were like, well, guess that storyline's over. Like, like there's no way to continue it. And you don't want to do it like the NWO thing that they do later in the early 2000s where it's Hogan and Nash and Scott Hall, and then Hogan leaves because he's too big of a baby face, and then it's Hall and Nash, and then they bring in X-Pac. Then Hall has to leave, and then they bring in like Big Show and Booker T, and then Shawn Michaels. Then they kick
somebody say NWO.
Exactly. Then they kick Booker T out, and then Nash gets hurt, and then suddenly like Vince comes out on Raw, and he's like, nope, you ain't gonna see the NWO anymore. It's done. Because by the time you get from Hall, Nash, Hogan to Big Show, X-Pac, Shawn Michaels, you're like, how did we get here? These two, one of these things is not like the other. So they know when to cut bait for sure because.
Well, X-Pac made sense because of the NWO and WCW, but like even Big Show to an extent. But Shawn Michaels, hey, I like Shawn Michaels, dude. Booker T, that was a big thing that was
they couldn't figure out if they wanted it to be old WCW guys or X-Click guys. Do you
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to be
yeah, yeah.
Nash?
They kind of like just
Nash?
kind of squished it together, dude. Just like made this
Yes, man. And
whatever.
no, and by the time it was all said and done, Hogan's like having world title shots against Triple H, right?
Mhm.
And Hogan's made it. Nash is hurt, and Hall's, you know, they essentially just fired him because of his substance abuse issues. And so
Mhm.
by then you're just like, well, that was a train wreck. There was nothing they could have done about it, obviously.
I think in terms of what's going on now, like a lot of people are just gonna the easy thing to do is just to point the finger at who's responsible, and that's saying
Which
Vince
finger's
McMahon.
that? You don't mean this finger? No. Is that a swear jar if I flip you off?
I don't know. All right. Anyways, so knock it off. Don't you get me started in this floor. Okay, so I think people are gonna point people are gonna point the finger at Vince McMahon,
Okay.
and they're gonna blame him, right? That's the first guy that they're gonna do is they're gonna blame Vince McMahon, and they're gonna be like, oh, Vince is releasing all these guys. It's Vince's fault, you know. And it's like, to me, I know that Vince has a heavy hand on things, like, you know, he's steering the wheel type deal, but also at the same time, at his age, I think he's also a little bit reluctant to trust his son-in-law.
Well,
You know what I
that's the
mean?
thing. Like they're saying in
It is
the
Vince's
chat
fault,
as well.
yes.
No, when you're the captain of the ship, you like you said, you're steering the ship into stormy waters or you calm
Yeah,
waters.
like,
Okay, seriously, like so. I think Vince isn't necessarily 100% in
by the way,
charge
Hayden
of
Shine, thank you for joining us.
every decision that gets made. I think because he's the guy who gets the lion's share of the credit when things are good. Like Vince is a billionaire. He's a genius. He's a, you know, like all these things. But when on the opposite
Does he get
side
that
of that,
though? Does he get that?
no, when the late 90s he did. Vince looked like
All right.
he was like a sports entertainment juggernaut, colossus. Like it was insane. So now when you mess things up and release guys you shouldn't or give or you know cut bait on some of these dudes and the numbers are down and ratings are down, guess whose fault it is?
Vince's.
So and you can say, okay, it is Vince's fault. There's obviously going to be other people to blame. There's going to be people in talent relations, like our good friend Johnny Ace, or you know,
People power.
no, seriously, it like it's going to be his fault.
That
too.
impression was like bar none, dude.
Oh, did I nail it? Okay.
Oh, it's better than my Macho Man impression. Jeez.
All right. Ooh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just think that Triple H even you know what's weird is it feels like there's push and pull in like this inner conflict with the WWE sometimes. It's like here's Triple H building up these stars, building up these guys on NXT, getting them a small following, and then they put them on Raw or SmackDown and bury them. And Triple H is over here just like, what am I supposed to do? I handed you guys these guys stars in the making, and then they're like, well, I don't know. Like they look at a Keith Lee or they looking at, and that's why some of them stay or go back to NXT, like Finn Balor and stuff. It's like when you get on Raw, you get on SmackDown. There's this weird, it's a different philosophy up there, and all of a sudden you blend in with the crowd, and it's like this big fish, small pond.
Yeah, but they're not even like what they used to be. Like Raw and SmackDown used to mean something, and like maybe some people still see something in that, but it's kind of like was it 205 Live? Why is that still going? Like, who's even watching that?
Wow.
There's like that 1%. Okay, don't get me wrong. If you're watching it, I'm not taking a shot at you. I'm just taking a shot at the fact that 205 Live exists. But like, if you're talking about casual fans that are watching, they're not going to want to break it up from already having watched two shows. It's like when I spit out a mouthful saying, "Go follow me here, go follow me here." You know, by the end of it you're just so tired, you know, from what was just given to you. So it's like Raw and SmackDown being the way that they are. If those shows were like bar none right now and they were competing at their like all cylinders, I think 205 Live is something that people would watch.
Are you saying like you're talking about oversaturation in general?
Yes, oversaturation, absolutely. Like too many shows, dude.
You can't have it both ways though. So there's oversaturation because you have a bloated roster. You got to have these guys. They have to have somewhere to go. And
that's why you got to cut it at the waistline.
No, and then you cut it back. You cut it back, and everyone goes, "What the WWE? What are they doing? They're firing all these people." And you're like, "Okay." So obviously there's a restructuring going on. Obviously, you know, maybe with oversaturation, like back in the Attitude Era, you could have 2 shows a week and then have heat then have a pay-per-view, and
But
then
also
the
look
other
at your roster
four
too and how
shows.
many people are in it. I think WWE's roster now, they have more guys because they give more opportunities now. You're talking they reach out overseas. Like whereas like you'd get like Chono or somebody or Ultimate Dragon for example, and picking them up from WCW. What I'm saying is you have a bigger roster now. So now you got to fill that roster. So my thing is what if they're planning to cut 205 live because they're talking about like the restructuring, right? So what if they cut 205 live? But you love all these guys on 205 live. If Akira Tozawa gets fired or whatever his name is, like somebody's gonna lose their shit on the internet and be like, what the hell? He's such a great worker. So unfortunately, all these next bleedings that they've just done, all these cuts on next, what if it's for NXT cutting these guys because they got to put these guys somewhere? Because what if they cut 205 live? They got to take these guys that you would be more upset over and put them somewhere where you can still watch them and probably on actually something that has exposure. The best thing that's going for them is NXT.
Well, here's what to add to your point, a couple of things. One, that I think them restructuring things and making cutbacks is actually progress. It seems like a step back most of the time, but a consolidation of your talent and a consolidation of your assets in this instance is not always a bad thing. And so everyone criticizes bloated roster, oversaturation, or whatever it might be. Then when they make those moves, I think it's a good thing that they're doing this to an extent. No one likes it when people lose their jobs, but I think there's quite possibly that consolidation is going to lead to some kind of prosperous period of time going in the future here. Now, bigger not meaning better. To your point earlier about, they could pull this off back then, and they can't pull it off now because the talent's not the same. Well, the other part of it was there was more places for people to go back in the 90s as well. Like Steve Austin didn't become Stone Cold Steve Austin until he came to the WWF. However, he became Steve Austin, and he molded
Stunning
his craft.
Steve Austin.
Right. But what I'm saying is he was perfecting his craft on his way to the dance, and then when he got there, he could blow up into that next thing because his in-ring work and his mic work was spot on. And the same thing goes when they would bring in people like you got Eddie and Chris Jericho and Benoit and Saturn and Malenko and stuff, because they were in ring making a name for themselves in WCW. But even before that in Japan and Mexico, and they just went and did these things. And then you see those guys now, they either like stay indie, they stay where they're at, they get brought in to mostly AEW. You'll end up seeing like luchadors on AEW and more pure wrestling technicians and things like that. Guys who were in TNA like Christopher Daniels and like Kazarian and stuff. That's where they ended up. And with WWE, that's not to say that they don't do that too, but oftentimes they're like trying to create talents out of the performance center and stuff like that. For every Adam Cole they bring in who made a name on the indies, they're trying to bring someone up through their system as well. And that's not to say it doesn't work. It's just the talent pool's diluted. And then when the product is not as gripping as before, there's a systematic and a fundamental error here in the way the circle of life for these wrestlers and these characters and stuff. And none of them get to shine through as individuals because of the scripted nature of the shows and things like that. There just isn't any, like if you think if The Rock was scripted and Austin was scripted back in the day, that
they wouldn't be as good. They wouldn't be as good because I mean, it's gonna be good, but they're like, just that's the thing. When you find that electricity, that charisma inside yourself, like, hey, this is the character I'm gonna be rolling with. Like how Stone Cold portrays himself versus how The Rock portrays himself. Two completely different characters, but somehow meet in the middle, and they make that perfect combination. That's why that was like that, once in a lifetime opportunity that happened.
Yeah,
you get
two once in a generation wrestlers.
Two once in a yes. And it's just like boom, there it is. And they just have the best chemistry. So it's like you got to put these guys together. Honestly, I look at like AEW and I see like everything else and where everybody's coming from is like the one person that I'm just surprised didn't end up in AEW and just never, landed was besides TNA, and that's Alex Shelley. Like you're talking about my favorite current modern wrestler. Like yours would probably be like CM Punk. Mine would also be, but you would know that I'm more of an Alex Shelley. Like Alex Shelley, if you put him in front of all these other guys that came from Ring of Honor, all these other guys that came from the Indies, and you want to put like that in a list and put Alex Shelley in it, like I'm going to choose him first because to me, that guy he learned from Scott D'Amore. Which when I watched AEW, like now Scott D'Amore is like on a higher up totem pole of TNA, like Impact, like working the. So it's
Not
like it's
just
crazy.
Team Canada manager, right?
Yeah, and he trained Alex Shelley, so he's got that wrestling mind, and you would think with Scott D'Amore, like you don't see him as the type of guy to teach those kind of moves to Alex Shelley, but that is the wrestling mind that trained Alex Shelley. So to see Alex Shelley, and then you see guys like Matt Sydal and guys like Johnny Gargano, and I think there's one more guy too that was it? His first name is Chris. He's doing indies, but like everybody else would know him. He's got blonde hair. He wrestled at like a water park. But if I can remember his name, all these guys like basically kind of like learn from Alex Shelley, and like Alex Shelley pretty much sees him as like a younger brother. Like if you look at Matt Sydal, dude, he kind of looks like Alex Shelley, which is scary. And him and his brother Mike, they did a tag team match on AEW last night, and I watched it. So like that's what I was getting into was I watched AEW, I gave it a chance, and the first thing that they opened with, I'll get into that, but this was Matt Sydal and Mike Sydal and Dante Martin, which showed off like a lot of that luchador stuff. But he was just dude, the guy was insane. Like I'm not really like into the fast paced like springboard spots anymore like I used to be because it's just I've seen it so many times. But this guy, if you're gonna watch something like that, this guy innovates it. Like he was from the outside, he'd work his way somehow to go through the middle ropes, and he was just like I felt like he was too energetic because like he would just be popping up. Like there was like no selling nothing. This guy was just off the ropes and he was going like stamina out the gate 120%. But he was great. He was flashy. He was great. But I saw Matt Sydal for the first time wrestle. Like I actually watched a full match. This guy did a Hurricanrana to the Young Bucks, like both of them at the same time. It was pretty cool. Like it was a really cool spot. Like he was, I never seen him like do like the martial arts type style to his moveset. So watching him like jump up and try to do like a back crane kick and then go and like they duck over and then he goes forward and then like he would like end it with a spinning heel kick. It was pretty cool to see. And then he gets up and he hits them both with a Hurricanrana. And I was like, are you kidding me? He got them both.
Right.
So,
no, and to your point about the innovative offense, when it was new, when you were
doing gimmicks, shine? Just to look at the chat real quick. Are you talking about like gimmicks, like nicknames, like a gimmick type deal?
Gimmick and nickname aren't necessarily
the same.
Right. I think they're just saying like in the sense of something to make them stand apart, not just like in the mid '90s with some silly clown gimmick or the atom bomb or you're a garbage man or you're a hockey player or whatever. That's man. A gimmick. That's a gimmick. Whereas a nickname
like the Crippler,
the Macho Man was the Macho Man, but it's not like he just came out and that defined him.
Did you not look at those muscles, man?
It's like that's the thing with nicknames. No,
but Jim Duggan didn't come out with a hacksaw. He came out with a 2x4.
Well, here's the they became that thing because they were so good and the nickname followed. Not necessarily the nickname or the gimmick starts it and then that's what defines you. So it has to work in the reverse. They have to be so good that the nickname sticks to them, not the other way around.
But when you got
the nickname is characters.
Like the nicknames that they have now,
Rick,
they have like the. Go ahead.
I was just saying before we move on from the innovative offense point you were making, I just want to say like you're like, oh, I like that springboard stuff and these spots with like multiple guys or like a tornado DDT, right? But that was before it was again an oversaturation of it, and that's why guys like RVD in his time, him and Jerry Lynn or a lot of guys in the X division were doing a ton of stuff that no one had seen before. But now that you have seen it 100 million times and they're not saving it for high spots on a pay-per-view, making you pay for, pay the price of admission to see the great stuff. Now they're just opening with it on AEW, and you know what I'm saying? You're not even waiting to see your champion.
It's not. Yeah, it's not like, oh, hey, we're gonna make this the main event. You're gonna want to see this or higher up on the card. You're gonna like. But I mean, I guess in the other aspect of that too is like when you look at it, sometimes you want that opening match to be the
Boom,
thing
yeah.
that it kicks you right out, so that way you're interested in what you're watching, and then they can lower it down with something else that's like a bathroom break. They'll give you the good stuff, and then they'll give you the bathroom break,
What
which
used to be the women's match, but now you're not allowed to not pay attention.
correct. Now, and this match, the tag team match, was just like it basically was a standard tag team match too. So that's the thing. Like I was watching it with the aspect that like I'm seeing the predictability of tag team matches. I'm questioning myself as I'm watching. Why do these still happen? Because you know what's going to happen. It all leads to hot tag. It's all freaking one guy like comes back and he fights him, and then like he like. And that's what it was. But I mean, they still got to make it manageable and like and entertaining to an aspect. So if you're gonna do the deed, you do it right. So that's what they did. They had the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega with all the gold, acting like the heels, getting the follies in. And one of the things was like Kenny Omega went like put his boot up onto the corner. So I think it was Nick Jackson who was tagging out, slammed his face into the boot. And then for some reason, I don't know why, but Kenny Omega like sold it like it hurt. And he put his foot down, he's checking on the apron. And the referee's not even paying attention to any of this. Like he's just doing it, like maybe to like act like, oh, spicy heel. Like you didn't want the ref to see that because back probably in the olden days,
Spicy
referee,
heel.
yeah, back in the olden days, if a referee saw something like that, maybe he would be like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Like, but because it's been done so many times now, it's like the ref doesn't even pay attention to that kind of thing.
Even the ref is deluded, right? He's just like, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
What am I going to stop you?
Like, but Kenny's selling it like it's part of like the story that he's telling. This intricate little. That's the thing. The intricate little story. Whether you're following along or not, like a wrestler, their goal is to portray the story. So Kenny Omega, being the way that he is, selling this angle of him being hurt for a second, maybe to shoo away ref, like, oh look, I'm hurt. Oh no, like, and then like he went because he went as soon as like 2 seconds later he tags in, he's fine. So obviously it was something I think to do with like the ref, but just nobody else was watching. So I don't know.
Right. Well, sometimes your fundamentals, your cliches in wrestling, your hot tags. The reason that they're there is because they work. The reason is you get that pop and they get that momentum swing in a wrestling match. The heels are going to stomp out the faces, right? They're gonna cut off the ring. They're gonna pound them in the corner. There's going to be a false hot tag. There's going to be a some choking, some distracting the ref, some, you know what I mean? There's going to be all that stuff. The reason it's been around for so long is because it works. And like they're talking about in the chat here too, some of the other concepts that always work is like you want to see the heel get his comeuppance by the baby face and get beat up. Same thing with the underdog story. This tag match, the 6-man tag you're talking about, the whole point is they're the elite and these guys are the other guys, right? So the point is you want to see him get the win, get the upset win. And so when they did that spot towards the end where he reversed the move and he got him in the schoolboy or whatever, and he got a 2 count out of it, and the crowd, you hear like the excitement of the announcers and the crowd's like, whoa, like so close, right? Because you want to see that. But then it's V triggers and triple knees to the face and just all this craziness, and you're like, okay, they snuffed this dude completely out.
Yeah,
and that's my problem when they do this type of thing for the Young Bucks in general. It's like, oh, we're gonna give the rub to these other guys, and they think that's what they're doing. They think that they're gonna get these other guys. They did it to Brian Pillman Jr., who you were talking about last week. They make it seem like he's got a chance, and then
they just take it away from him.
Not just take it away from him. The means in which the heels or the elite in this example get the win also matters. You can't just stomp their ass out in the last 30
Dude, they got to do all the showboating and everything, dude. Like pinning him with one leg up with the muscles.
Like, why didn't you just have him roll him up and then they get back up? There, he goes for his finisher, and then Kenny turns him around, puts him up, one-winged angel or whatever. You don't have to get into this double super kick. They got to get all their shit in, right? Because they're Young Bucks. And so,
but they actually, for this match, they didn't. It was actually surprising. Like they gave them a great, like both sides got a lot of offense in. So instead of being
saying, why not let the chicken shit heel, even if it's Kenny Omega, the greatest wrestler in AEW, let him win by the skin of his teeth. Then that gives the real rub to Matt Sydal and his brother.
Well, you'd be portraying your gimmick better too if you're being the heel, that you only won because like. Again, just
no, exactly.
Trade for
and
the
then that he goes, no, the only reason Kenny beat this underdog guy is because he cheated or something to that effect, right? You go, oh man, I hope this dude comes back around and gets him back for that because and then you go, wow, dude, that guy would have beat him if he wouldn't have cheated, right?
Yeah, it's like so. That's the thing. So with Kenny Omega, is he a heel then? I mean, like, don't get me wrong,
Well,
he
Cody
has the
Rhodes
mannerisms
says
of a heel, but he doesn't really do like he
69
finished
me
the match.
Don, right? No, no, my whole thing is Cody Rhodes tries to claim that there is no faces or heels, everything's gray and everything. That's life. Okay, life is a gray area. That's how we live our lives. Why would we want to watch our wrestling that way? We want clear defined heels and faces. To the point in the chat too. Let there be a Russian that comes in front of the people in front that people hate. And then you want that guy to get beat.
Well,
by
that's
the American
Miro.
guy, or
So Miro, who is
Miro.
Rusev,
Right.
is the TNT champion right now, and that's kind of what he's doing. He's actually gotten back to this because AEW brought him on, and then they started like treating him like a joke, and
Right. No,
then
he
all
came,
of a
I
sudden,
remember they were talking about how he came out. He was like in a Mickey Mouse T-shirt and like he was not translating to a Bulgarian brute or a force to be reckoned with. You
he was
can't
being
come
the
out
same
in a
joke he was
Mickey
in
Mouse
WWE.
T-shirt. What was that?
I said, oh, yeah, come out in a Mickey Mouse T-shirt, look like a joke, dude.
No, you can't. You can't do that. Unless you're Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is the only guy in the world, I swear to you, can come out looking like Lenny Kravitz with the huge scarf, and then he just gets over anyways because you respect him. But he didn't come out looking like that to begin with. Is all I'm saying. He, as time went on, he went, oh, well, I'm just gonna feather my hair. I'm gonna wear a scarf. My jacket's gonna light up, and I'm gonna look like a total tool. However, he's Chris Jericho, so you got to give him credit where credit is due.
Absolutely, and there was a storyline with like oh man, Earl Hebner used to do that all the time. Like when he pushed Triple H down that one time when Triple H got in his face and he pushed him down, he told him to suck it. Like I think Earl Hebner was probably like one of the most infamous refs because he was the one who first started giving pushback.
I just saw this comment in the chat about like a storyline where a ref gets tired of getting pushed around, so he hits the gym and comes back and starts.
That's what I'm talking about.
Dude, that'd be fantastic, but you'd have to get the right ref. It can't be what was it, Garrett Bischoff or whatever.
Oh my god, dude, Garrett Bischoff, dude, I forgot he was a thing, man. That's sad.
Right, but I'm saying the light up
Like,
jacket.
Garrett Bischoff was
as heavy-handed had Jericho not already established himself as like Y2J and the Ayatollah of not Coca-Cola back then.
How'd you know? How'd you know I was gonna say it?
Because I know you. I can read your mind.
I see that, dude. So moving on from this illustrious tag team match. Yes. Hey, Bubby. I want to say hi. Austin is a good friend of mine who would have been here today but could not be here with us to be on the show to talk about this. So we were talking very heavy about the Four Horsemen though in AEW, like what me and you talked about last week. Me and him had talked about it like the night before. Like I was at work, and we were just getting into it, dude. Because I'm honestly, as a fan, watching AEW, and then it's not just AEW. It's just the things that have got me interested in watching any kind of wrestling was Edge and Roman, and now obviously John Cena, Roman, and Ed. Not so much Edge and Rollins, but
what's the common denominator between those two things you just said?
Don't start with this. Don't start with Roman.
I'm just letting you know.
It's John Cena and it's Edge.
No,
it's John Cena and it's Edge.
Could you have said 3 or 4 years ago? No. Could you have said 3 or 4 years ago that Roman Reigns would be a centerpiece of something you would be interested in watching?
Listen, I don't want to get into this crackpot theory of yours right now because I was on a different discussion.
That's fine.
I don't want to talk about Roman right now. I don't want to talk about Roman because now you just ruined my spirits. All right? Listen, Roman is better on the mic now. Okay, but I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to do what everybody else is doing, and I'm not going to get on my hands and knees and grovel to the head of the table. I will say what he's doing, it's the best thing going for Roman. And honestly, for him to get that natural reaction from the crowd, the cheers that he always wanted and that Vince wanted to shove down to our throats, they're doing it now. Okay, so I hope you're happy. There you go. Okay, with Roman Reigns.
I just thought eventually they'd give up on him because it was like. We were never going to receive him as an audience the way that they wanted us.
That's the thing. Doing it as a face, like it's not going to work. So doing it as a heel, it's going to work because like, oh wow, like that's Roman for you. It's just the simple little tricks of the trade that okay, you don't want to cheer for him as a face. That's what we wanted. All right, we'll give him to you as a heel, and then you're going to cheer for him then because that's 2021 wrestling right there for you. Cheer for the heels, right? So. Now he's loved by everybody, and that's fine. Like I still feel about how I feel about Roman in my heart, just like how I felt about John Cena when he was wrestling. But the moment that he leaves, it'll be a different story then, because it's like, oh man, Roman wasn't actually that bad. You gotta do the John Cena return. Everybody
How
hated
can I
Cena, but
miss you if you
now
won't go away? I
exactly.
get to
That's
say
it.
that every
It's a,
week.
it's a reoccurring theme, baby. It's not going to just be this week. It will be many weeks to come. But that's
Yeah.
what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm happy for him as a wrestler because he's entertaining enough to where, all right, this is your big guy that you're going to get for the next like 10 years. Like soak it in. Like this is your guy. Like, and then obviously Seth Rollins being the other guy. It's your Randy Orton and your John Cena. It's no Rock Austin. It's no Ric Flair Hogan, but
Mhm.
it's going to be the next installment. You got John Cena and Randy Orton, and now this is the next thing to John Cena Randy Orton. You can't
The
put these guys
problem with Roman right now is a lot of those guys you said, like Cena and Orton, that's the same
that people say
generation.
that he's better than The Rock at
Well,
wrestling.
The Rock and Austin are the same generation. Hogan and Flair are
Same generation.
generally the same generation. However, who's on Roman's level that's actually part of his generation?
Seth Rollins,
Is he?
John Moxley, who's in AEW.
Is
So, hey, he was champion.
He's like the dumpster diving version of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Okay?
Yeah, no, that's Kevin Owens to me. I think John Moxley, at least, if you're gonna have somebody be that kind of rebellious type character, like it fits John Moxley because he's a loose cannon, like Brian Pillman Jr. over there. Like I would
always
rather.
felt the difference. No, honestly, the difference between Dean Ambrose or John Moxley, whatever you want to call him, one of the things I can't ever get over is just the unadulterated arrogance of his appearance on the Broken Skull podcast. I can't, to this day, I can't get over how.
Dude, thank you for reminding me about that because I was so I was giving him the world, and I remember when I watched that, dude, it was so awkward to watch.
It was a bad look, not just because Austin was taking it way too serious, and Dean Ambrose or John Moxley was taking it way too lightly. Yeah, he was being weird, and then it was just like Austin doesn't understand this generation of guys whom, like, it's meh, meh, whatever. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. So the apathy.
These guys, basically, these guys like Rock and Austin walked so these other guys could sit there and go, well, meh, it could be better. Like I'm not getting sort of like that's. I think that's the huge difference about like the 80s and 90s and now.
No, and to me, like attitude sucks, beer sucks.
What's up, Andrew? What I was getting at though is the fact that these guys like they would give anything just to be on TV for a minute. Even like Chris Jericho said it himself, on the Broken Skull. Like when you get that airtime, whether it's 20 seconds, 10 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever, like you take advantage of it because they're trusting you with that time on TV, so that means something, whether or not. So I think that's the thing with the gratefulness that I've been talking about with wrestlers. It's just that there's an ungrateful like chip on the shoulder that you get where it's like, oh well, I could have been WWE champion by now and I haven't been. Like obviously if it's stale for you and it's a couple of years and you're not happy where you're at, but you're willing to say take a pay cut from a big company that will put you on once a month on TV, let alone, or you just go back to the indies and you wrestle for whatever amount of money that you're going to make there. Like at that point, is it passion that you're wrestling for, or is it the money? Because if it's both. I mean, so obviously that's where like AEW or Impact would come in, somebody that might have a little bit of money, where you're making a decent wage, a decent living. Mm-hmm. You're indie darling to some kind of extent. You can travel where you want.
Yeah, you're saying you sometimes you have to sell out to a degree to make the money, right? So
yeah, if it's worth it to you.
You can't be an indie darling anymore if you sell out. So like you don't get to have your cake and eat it too, as far as like, oh, I made the big time. And I still get to. Daniel Bryan got to have that. He got to be known as an indie guy.
Yeah, but
and got to go to
it's
the
not
big
does that. Yeah, but I'm not saying it's just like one of saying guys back then would have given anything just for 2 minutes on the WCW time. Like guys like the cruiserweights that wanted to be part of the main roster just for 2 seconds before the NW would take over. Like that's the thing. People were fighting.
They lawn dart him into the side of the production truck. Or
whatever. A la Rey Mysterio. Like that's what I mean. Like these guys. Back in the 90s and the 80s, you give them a microphone for even just, hey, you got 10 seconds before we go to commercial break. Just trying to get something in. Like, you you're gonna shoot for the stars, right? That's the only thing you're gonna do, like, probably for a month. Worth it. Now it's like a guy could be on like Raw or SmackDown, show him like once a month on like Saturday Night Main Event or whatever, and it's just like he's there and he's collecting a paycheck. You know, some guys are grateful for that. That they're there collecting that paycheck because it's a mighty fine paycheck just for that one appearance on Saturday Night Main Event. Like some guys complain, but if you think about it, like yeah, it'd be nice to have that glory and that fame where like, oh man, I'm a main character on the show. But sometimes it's also good to sit back and be like, hey, I'm getting paid to just be this B-rated guy, and I really don't have to try.
Right. And no, and if it
So-
were, yeah, if you're comfortable in your spot. However, these roster shakeups would really let you know maybe you can't get too comfortable and get too content. Maybe you need to set yourself apart before you get let go, kind of thing. So
hold on. Before we get too crazy, I just want to on top what Haven Shine's saying is that like we understand that they're actors, but at the same time, the thing that people need to separate also from that role is that acting is part of par for the course. But what you're watching is in WWE's terms sports entertainment, or if you're actually like a fan, professional wrestling. So either way you flip that coin, if you're watching sports entertainment, you know, yeah, you're gonna get more of that actor role. But at the same time, this still is a sport to these guys, whether it's sports entertainment or sports unfolded or professional wrestling. It's still a sport. So at the end of the day, as a wrestler, there's a sense of pride when you have this character that's shown that you get to show that's yours only, and people love it, and you're doing the big role. You're becoming a Rock and a Stone Cold. Like as a wrestler, at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want to get paid, you want to get laid, and you want to be made. That's honestly the dream. It's like being the rock star, dude. Like you're in the limelight. So you can't just settle for less. Some people can't just settle for being on a Saturday Night Main Event once a month and getting paid for it. They want, like Jon Moxley when he left WWE, he wanted more. He was hungry.
Well,
he actually
yeah, I see what you're saying. He wanted more for himself, not necessarily money wise. I don't know how he's getting paid now compared to how he's getting paid before, but
I'm sure he's fine in the terms that he's probably not getting.
He wanted more creatively. You're saying?
Do you think he was making as much as people like to talk? Because that's another thing, like with Vince McMahon, and then just also the money that people getting paid. Like I know that we got people that like release like people's salaries, but really, like, are you their like H&R Block guy? Do you have these actual numbers?
Am I their accountant? No.
Or are you just getting off the room?
I'm not sure. You can safely assume that some guys get paid better than others.
But I feel like Dean Ambrose, because he was sought out, he was the original leader of the Shield. He was sought to be like, the first guy to break out into the main event, but actually ended up being Seth Rollins, and then Roman Reigns, and then Dean Ambrose. Like it was kind of like, it was weird. Like they each changed hands as leader, but only two of them saw the gold, and then he finally got that chance, and it just kind of like the spark didn't fly. So at that point, since he was never really given the opportunity, do you think he was ever really paid like a main eventer would be paid, or like a WWE champion would be paid? I'm thinking Dean Ambrose's paychecks probably weren't as high as we're thinking. Maybe they were like 670.
Maybe not as high as those other two. And then the question becomes, if I'm not getting that kind of money, like my old Shield brothers are, then it does become about legacy, to the point in the chat there that Andrew says, like, money and legacy. Like you can have both, but sometimes it's like a slow burn. Like John Cena gets to have both the money and the legacy. He's probably the highest paid wrestler for a long, 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 long time, with the most merchandise, the most whatever. And then his legacy came afterwards. We're like over here like, oh gosh, Super Cena, and then you just want to like gag me with a spoon kind of thing. However, we were just talking recently about how now he's come back, and all we can really do is like respect the journey and respect him for who he is. Like, because now that he was gone and we saw what the alternative was, or what the next generation of wrestlers had to show, it's kind of like, well, I kind of missed how the John Cena thing was. Cena sucks. Well,
gotta get the Cena sucks chance in.
Right, that's right. Let's go Cena, but Cena sucked in Suicide Squad. That's the other part.
Some people liked him as a peacemaker, but apparently not a lot of people liked him as a peacemaker.
I just to our point earlier about oversaturation and too much TV time, I think that Vince came out and had this quote about like, oh, they're picking up our talent. Maybe we should give them some more of them or whatever, right? He said this in an interview. And then right afterwards is when they released those other 12 or 13 guys or whatever. And it was very strange how he said it. And then maybe there's something he knows that AEW doesn't, as far as like, sure, go ahead, pay all these guys, bring them in and see what happens. Like as far
But
as the whole
again,
situation goes.
that's definitely coming around the mountain with that, because like that's what I'm talking about with Vince, as far as like the wrestling mind that he has. Like people sit here and be the first to point fingers at him, but it's just like Vince does things for a reason. He just doesn't do it just because. Like if he's cutting guys, maybe the money could go better into the product that we're watching, because that's the thing. There's so much oversaturation inside the walls. Like WWE, to me, um, you know, I see a lot more of that being shown as they're fighting within themselves, because they have all this stuff. There's all this inner turmoil. So they're fighting with themselves. They don't fight with AEW, TNA, and all these other guys.
Right,
They
right. Their
don't
struggles
play ball.
within, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
within. So it's like, so as far as these guys who maybe somebody on the totem pole that's a little bit higher right now is a little upset because they're not getting paid as well as they probably should be. So maybe they're ruffling some feathers, and then it's kind of like there's a whole bunch of things that can go into that.
So to the point in the chat here about The Rock ruining the Fast and Furious and Jumanji and stuff like that. So they can ruin these things. And Cena can be in Suicide Squad and not be known as a great actor, which was our topic in week 2 or 3 or whatever it was. But wrestlers in movies, right? So here's the deal with that. There was a Michael Caine, and Michael Caine's a pretty famous actor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Michael Caine said, what do you say to people who were very critical of your performance in Jaws 2? And Michael Caine said, I can't remember what my performance was in Jaws 2. He says, I can't remember any of the reviews of Jaws 2. What he does remember is the house that Jaws 2 paid for. He remembers in vivid detail the house that he lives in that Jaws 2 paid for. And that, to this point, is sometimes when you're in Hollywood and you're doing this thing and we're going to do the Jungle Cruise movie and we're going to do Rampage and we're going to do all this stuff. Sometimes it really is about the money in that aspect. As far as legacy goes, if you want to be a great actor, Bryan Cranston, if you want to be a Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, if you go further back and stuff like that, it's like if you're going to be a great actor, be a great actor and be known for those great performances. If you're going to be in these B-movie family romp flicks, getting paid, like I'm sure that The Rock put in as much effort as was necessary to get paid the amount of money that he needed to get paid, and to put that in his account and provide for his family. Sometimes it's like, and we sit here and we say, oh, well, that was kind of crappy. And unfortunately, our summer blockbuster movies aren't as good as they used to be. But maybe it was Jaws 4. I'm serious. It was like some weird sequel to Jaws. And he's like, get out of the bloody plane and I'll distract. Anyway, my point being, they've just done what was necessary of them to get paid. And that really is all it is about. And if kids go and see Jumanji, or whoever's watching Jumanji, I don't know who the target audience for that is. Whoever's going to go watch Jumanji, if they're entertained and it works, okay, but we're not going to expect it to be a 5-star classic. Most kids' movies don't get the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles treatment, where it's like a good movie when you revisit it later as well, not just something you loved as a kid. So you get to look at it with nostalgia glasses, like Space Jam, which isn't a great movie, the first one even. But you get to watch it with this nostalgia, and you get to go, oh, that's great. And I remember seeing this in the theater when I was a kid, kind of thing. And it's tongue-in-cheek, and it's corny, but you laugh anyway, because... And then the soundtrack kicks ass for Space Jam, so what more can you ask for? At least if Jumanji's soundtrack kicked ass, then maybe it would have been received better. Truth be told, we have now divulged so far from the point that, Rick, go ahead, take it away.
Oh, you want me to take it away now? I was letting you have your spotlight, man.
No, don't. I was talking in one big circle there. I was just telling you. My point being, when it comes to that,
guys get paid and they don't care about their movies. Like,
yeah, there it is. Yeah,
they care about the money. They don't care about the movies. They care about the money, dude. The Rock could be like, "Hey, we're gonna put you in the live Care Bears movie, dude. If you pay me $15 million, dude, I can be in whatever movie you want me to be." Like that, dude. He's just like, you give me $15 million, dude, I will be Grumpy Bear. You give me about $20 million, dude, I will be Lionheart.
Bears movie, dude. Like, yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. Dude. Money talks and people walk, dude. Like, and then The Rock of all people knows he can twist that role around. One of the most weirdest things ever is like this guy still has that charisma to be able to just like take on a role like the Care Bears and make it work. Dude, you would watch it. You would watch it just because The Rock is in it. Like even if he's a Care Bear, dude. Maybe.
I haven't watched a Rock movie.
You're telling me that in my lifetime that I've had to watch the movie Cats, the worst movie ever made, that I wouldn't give a Care Bears Rock live action movie a chance? I would. I would over the Cats 9 times out of 10. He was a Tooth Fairy.
No, and Vin Diesel was a babysitter, wasn't he?
The pacifier.
Okay, I'm just saying, like, you make decisions in this life, and then you drive cars out of planes and parachute into whatever is happening in the Fast and Furious movies nowadays.
You know what's not happening right now? I'm not interested in Fast and the Furious. That's what's happening now.
Right, yeah. I don't think I've ever actually sat through one of those movies, so I don't know.
Not even like the first 3. Okay.
The first couple were okay or something. I've never seen any of them.
That's because so real quick, since this is not a wrestling conversation, we're gonna keep it nice and short and sweet. Fast and the Furious, the first one and the second one were actually about guys racing cars, dude, and being a part of that lifestyle. Like it was about the Need for Speed Underground, but like real life. And it's like it was cool because like of like Limp Bizkit and all these edgy artists that were like around that time when the first like 2 came out. And then they came out with Tokyo Drift, and it's like, oh man, okay, this is kind of still whatever. It's all right. Like, all right, cool. Tokyo Drift has nothing to do with the main cast, but it's chill. And then all of a sudden, like okay, after that, who cares? And then it's like people like they kind of fell off. It was like watching the wreck that is known as the Transformers. Like it just started going off into they just starting to pump out numbers now. And it's like, you tell me something that you remember from Fast and Furious 4. Because if you can, dude, I'm telling you right now, this title that's on the line every week, dude, right here. Right here, dude. If you can remember one scene out of Fast and Furious 4, good luck. I'm telling you right now.
Which one that is? Tokyo Drift's the third one, right?
Yeah, and at that time, it was not really an official. It was kind of like a sequel, but not like a main sequel to it.
I know that Vin Diesel probably went, do anything for my family. And he did some mumble growls and this and that, what have you. And then, like, I don't even know when about, like, Paul Walker died and stuff. And I've been sitting
it was like around Fast 5.
I've been sitting here listening to your point. I know we're not even remotely close to talking. I do want to say something to you. I was sitting here considering telling you this very inappropriate Paul Walker joke that I heard. If you're at all interested in hearing it.
Go for it.
Okay, so
if we get canceled, by the way, this is his opinion, not mine. Okay, just hold on. This is his opinion, not mine.
No, this is a bit. This is a bit. I gotta be as PC about it as I can. The joke goes, "What's the difference between my computer and Paul Walker?"
I wanted to go with runs on 98, but I'm gonna withdraw.
That I actually care if my computer crashes.
All right, guys, that is it was 7:56 now. I think that's all we have time for this episode.
No, so going back to AEW, Rick.
Dude.
Going back to AEW.
Is that an automatic disqualification right there? Can we count that as an automatic disqualification? Okay. As long as we got that in there, that's all I really care about right now is Miss Liz, yeah.
So you told me you wanted to talk about Christian in general, though.
I wanted to talk about AEW tonight, but we got into a thing, and then I kind of just like let you have it, and then we came back around. We've got all the way down to the point
so you provoked. This is like an Eddie Guerrero, like dusty finish. You provoked me, and then you threw the chair in my hands, and then the ref saw it, and now I'm disqualified.
Pretty much that, and that after the match, I'm going to line you up on a wall. I'm going to take off your mask. I'm going to be sorry, Holmes, and then like, oh, you should put that back on because that bit was always great when he unmasked the WCW cruiserweight division unceremoniously and disrespectfully, and was forced to because that's WCW for hey, go take off all those little guys' masks. They're not going to get offended or nothing. Just go ahead. He's cool with it. Yeah, that little guy with the horns over there, Toro Del Toro, whatever his name is. Just go ahead, take it off. Who cares, right? Like the guy. Look at him. He's like 5'2". Really? Like, oh, dude.
Belongs to the streets.
Yeah, he does. that man is a legend in his own right. But no, AEW was honestly it started off with MJ. Wow, we finally got to the start off of the show. That's awesome. MJF, it was eating an apple and talking to Chris Jericho about the labors of Jericho and running that talking that good shit, running his mouth. I'm allowed to say that because this guy's already taken it too far. So I get my one swear jar in for the day. I'll put my 25 cents in later, but MJF's eating he takes a bite out of an apple and he takes another bite out of the apple. And basically he's just talking trash on Jericho about how the big guy behind him is going to handle his business, but he's all MJF. So who cares about the big guy in the back? I'm MJF. Like, listen to me. I got an apple. And people would just wonder if he was doing this to be obnoxious, because he'd like take a bite and then he'd start talking with his mouth full over that dish and like, ha, I'm a heel. And then it's like, or
no,
was he?
The guy's a bad guy when he's got an apple. Like, that's how it works in 80s movies and obviously in AEW.
So yeah, he's got the apple, and some guys peel it. They just peel it. They're not even eating. They're just peeling it. Like Casey Jones and TMNT, dude, because he's so cool. He's just sitting there and he takes a bite after it.
Well, he's not a heel then. He's just.
Nah, dude, he was kind of a heel at the beginning there when he shoved her down and like he held her down like with the sword, like when he was chopping the sword and chopping the food up for her, and like he sits her down and he gives her like the massage, like he's all forceful about it, and she's like no, and she does that. Yeah, Casey Jones, that was a heel move, dude. He sat her right down and was like, listen, you're going to get this massage. And then she just gave in. That's Casey Jones for TMNT. If I had to say anything, that dude's a heel. Regardless.
Okay.
Regardless.
But then they do the double turn with him and whoever else, right?
Yeah, but that's just because it's lovable Casey, dude. He's a little forceful, but don't worry. In the third TMNT, he'll come back and go travel back in time. Well, he doesn't travel back in time. He hangs out with the cool dudes that are the samurais.
He babysits the honor guard guys.
Dude, you can't act like he wasn't having fun with those guys.
We were talking about wrestling for a second, weren't we? So
yes,
MJF's problem.
Get into what Bubby's saying. It could be preluding to Carlito. Him with the apple could be preluding to Carlito. I spit in the face of people who don't want to be cool. Carlito cool. Which would be cool to see him in AEW, but honestly, that just comes down to I feel like it's TNA 2011 all over again. Like again, every single guy that I see that I've already seen in WWE, when I see them go to the I don't want to say B show because I don't want to offend anybody here who is a fan of AEW. I'm a middleman, so I'm just gonna say when you're watching a newer show,
they're still
I don't know.
Up.
There's the underdog, the newcomer, the new TNA. That's the thing. People skipped over TNA when they're talking about the competition, the war. They talk about the original Monday Night Wars. They just skip over TNA so disrespectfully, and they're just like, AEW is the first thing in 20 years you've seen since the war. It's like, dude, TNA had a nice run in chance, dude, until after 2010. Like, don't cut these guys down. 2006 to 2010 was like their best years. So TNA was like definitely. They were cutting in. It might not be like as crazy as WCW was with the ratings where they'd taken over, but dude, they were putting out enough content where it was like you were watching TNA and that was the thing that was exciting about it. It was like, oh, it's TNA and then you got WWE. You were comparing those two. So the fact that don't get me wrong, where TNA has fallen, I think you can run like send these guys underneath a mat and just kind of brush them away. But do not forget the significance of those early years of TNA. Like that was probably their best chance. And they came right out the gate, dude. Like TNA wasn't like AEW where they had these guys that like, oh, we were on WWE, we got all this money, and we got these guys from Japan over here that are like ready to go and they're American. And you want to see them, Kenny Omega and stuff. Like the way that AEW got in, I think should be thankful because not everyone can come into the business like that. I mean, you had Jeff Jarrett and Daddy's Money, so TNA was kind of the same way, but AEW was kind of presented better to me. Like I know AEW exists. I found TNA on the Fox Sports Network. Like I found it by flipping channels and it's like, oh, what the hell is this? Jeff Hardy's on here. Jeff Jarrett's on here. Who's this guy? Sting. Well, that's even before Sting showed up. Yeah. How much does this guy weigh? Like,
no,
but you see what I'm saying? Like,
you know what's weird, Rick? Just as a quick side note, how I was introduced to TNA was that I found that Best of X Division DVD from like 2006.
Really? Yeah. So that the Paparazzi Productions, like the games in it? Because that was honestly the best of the X Division was Kevin Nash.
It just showed that like obviously like Jerry Lynn and Low Key and
AJ
AJ
Styles,
Styles,
Christopher
all the way up
Daniels,
to
Samoa
like that
Joe.
6 sides of steel moment that they always play with the
Oh, with
Skipper.
primetime,
Yeah,
Skipper walking the cage and
yeah.
doing the
So
Hurricane.
that's
Yeah,
and all it takes is getting your foot in the door. As soon as they get their foot in the door, as far as you as a viewer, they should be able to keep you for at least a little while. And then I watched TNA when they came over to Spike TV and all that, or whatever it was. It was Spike TV, wasn't it?
it was Spike TV.
Yeah.
That's pretty much who picked them up after Fox Sports
Oh,
Network did.
look, if I do this, I'm CM Punk. Look.
Nice. You just got to be like that for like the rest of the show. Just kick back and relax and just CM Punk stuff.
Well, you lay there, hopefully as uncomfortable as humanly possible.
Which speaking of which, I'm not going to break down the whole card of AEW. Like I watched it. The most entertaining things to me was that first match. I did like so after that. Was it the Elite were celebrating, and then Christian Cage interrupts them, and he comes out, and it's like, oh, there's 8 of us in the ring, or 10 of us in the ring, and there's only one of you, and then obviously like Jungle Boy comes out, and T-Rex dude,
Tarzan Boy, right?
Yeah, Tarzan Boy,
right, which is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 connection. We were really leading into.
We were leading to seriously no, because I was going to lead into it earlier when I was going to bring it up. So yes, it is all connected. It is all connected.
That looks like I'm doing something else, but oh.
And that's what Kenny Omega did. He did to the crowd. He's like, "What?
Can I do the 3 spin? No. Oh.
No.
That's my apology for that.
That was Kenny Omega doing that. But yeah, no.
69 me, Don. I'm just never gonna get over that, okay? I just can't help it.
Oh my god.
I think we missed a few comments in the chat here though. The Hardy Boys and tag team ladders on repeat.
Take it away.
Fantastic. Jay Lethal was a god during those years, like the TNA. Like that's a little bit later though, 2008, 2009, right? He wasn't like one of the big guys. And then Shark Boy is the other comment.
Mm-hmm. Which all he led to was Stone Cold Steve Shark Boy. So, I mean,
Christian was also in TNA, which is we're getting back to that Christian promo.
Christian Cage, yeah, who came out and interrupted with those guys and came in the ring, and basically just like said he talked to Tony Khan, and he, the whole show was basically just like an advertisement for Rampage. That's all it was an advertisement for Rampage on, oh, this is coming out and whatnot. So get excited. And so in the middle of the ring while bringing up Rampage and how he's going to, whatever, people were chanting CM Punk when they were chanting it. So obviously that's going to happen. It was loud as hell. So, and you just see these guys just in the ring trying to avoid it, make eye contact, like they're embarrassed about it. They don't want to talk about it. Like, oh, maybe we did sign him. Maybe we didn't. We don't.
Now they know they're in trouble because if Punk comes around, they know he's going to be the biggest thing they ever had.
True, and that's
whatever the hell they're doing.
Well, unless the Four Horsemen is formed in the way that I'm thinking it will be formed, which we talked about.
Hoping and praying.
Hey, listen, dude, that's what I was saying about like before we got to this point when I was all the way back talking about Edge and whatnot. John Cena was like, just the fact that the first thing that's got me excited in wrestling on the WWE aspect of things was the Edge and Roman thing. I watched like highlights of SmackDown because I will not watch Pat McAfee. So I watched highlights of SmackDown that didn't include Pat McAfee and just included Edge and Roman and the Usos, everybody but Pat McAfee. Yeah. Right. And I did. I put it on low volume so I couldn't hear him. And I actually I stood him more when I heard him than I ever did. So it's like he gets a pass for me on that week, but that doesn't mean I don't still not hate Pat McAfee. If I ever see you in a big Y or something, Pat McAfee, just know you better walk the other way.
You better hope he doesn't see you in the streets.
I will whack you with a baguette, dude. Do not come for me. Anyways.
Right, yeah, let's see if we can get Pat on the show next week.
Yeah, let's see if he actually responds this time because we all know he's scared.
As big of a car wreck as that Paul Walker joke was.
Time is now 8:06. We kind of went 6 minutes over, ladies and gentlemen. But
I thought we were going for an hour and a half.
Oh man,
we're not going for an hour and a half.
If we get a third Paul Walker joke in here, I don't think we're going to make it to next week.
No, that wasn't a joke. I wasn't making a joke. I was saying the joke that I made earlier. The bit it was the car wreck, not the car wreck itself.
It's still a joke that you made about. That's two, man.
No. I told you it was offensive, and then I prefaced that it was a bit. I don't feel that it was funny. I didn't laugh when I said it.
Christian Cage was out here with Jungle Boy and T-Rex man, dude, and they were out there, and they were like, basically, it came down to talk about Tony Khan talked to me on the phone. I'm not going to tell you what he said, but I'm going to kind of tell you what he said. But we don't even know if I really talked to Tony Khan.
I'll give you the cliff notes of our phone
Scott D'Amore was on in this conversation too. I told him that I'm going for the best coveted prize, not his Impact title, but in fact the AEW title. I told Scott D'Amore to his face on the phone that your title's not as good because he said it was the most coveted prize, dude. And like, meanwhile, they got the Impact title right on the other shoulder, like that bald dude that was in there. And it was just like, oh yeah, there you go. That's a good way to promote the company. That way we let you win our belt, so that way you can just sit here and disrespect us like this. So like that's the thing. And Christian's like, oh, I'll go for your belt for this at All Out. So it was supposed to be Adam Page, but I think he just had a daughter. So he's not going to be there for it. So everybody's like, this is what I've been seeing on the internet, is that people are up in arms because it's like, oh, Christian's replacing Adam Page because God forbid the man want to be with his daughter than win a fake title. And I saw that on Twitter yesterday, and I'm just like, this whole thing is going back and forth.
So quick poll for anyone who's still in the chat after all of that. I mean, does anyone feel that Christian is the right choice here?
No, because you can't say Christian because that's a WWE guy who was never going to get an opportunity. Christian Cage, remember the TNA World Champion Christian Cage, who I think has a shot. What's the poll?
Who do the people in the chat think is the most deserving AEW wrestler who could usurp, obviously, Kenny Omega as the champion? That's the real question. Because when you said Christian to me in the text earlier, I went, Christian, okay. No, and he's great. Christian Cage, for those of us who are calling him Christian Cage.
My vote is for Adam Page.
Because you think it should have been Adam Page.
Orange Cassidy.
Now, is that because is that like one of those, he's the most entertaining, or he's the one who you feel has really climbed up the ranks? And
Adam Page has been telling the story for like the last 2 years, like of his career. This is what he was culminating.
But Rick, they're also going to give it more time. You gotta realize you're waiting for them to pull the trigger.
But if Christian Cage wins, let's just say I think Kenny's going to retain over Christian. I think Christian's just there to be because Adam Page can't do it. I think Christian's just there to do it. So that way Kenny gets a successful defense over somebody. And why not do it with Christian Cage of all people? It makes sense.
A guy who can get in the ring and give you...
And then it goes Christian, who just came in, that ample push where it's like, dude, he almost had it. But Kenny Omega beat him clean with the feed trigger because he's a heel. Right. If Kenny Omega wins by the scruff of his neck or whatever, he'll
just beat him clean. 1, 2, 3.
If he does though, if it goes traditional and Kenny Omega wins via because it's good for Christian Cage because it's like he would have had him if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for the Young Bucks and whatnot, and if the meddling kids come out and run out, that means obviously Jungle Boy and T-Rex arms are going to come out and then they're going to fight him. And it's going to lead down to where basically Christian gets distracted watching it, and maybe Kenny Omega hits him with picks him up and does the electric chair drop on him, and then that's it, like the driver pins him, whatever. It's going to happen, and if it does that way, then solid match for them for All Out. But obviously, it's not your Adam Page versus Kenny Omega, so it gives Kenny Omega the win, and then it leaves us ample room for Adam Page to get him at the next big pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anything can happen. AEW says like the next generation or whatever of wrestling, like the new thing to watch for wrestling. But I mean, honestly, having WWE guys in there and all these minds, like these guys may tote themselves on being something new. But you're talking about if you want to look at it in the cheapest way of the sense, these guys are I'm not gonna say has-beens disrespectfully, but I'm gonna call them has-beens because guess what? You are like. In my opinion, you're not a has-been. You're not like a shitty wrestler. You're just a has-been, as in you were in WWE. Now you're not. You were on the main show. Now you're not. You're here. You're in the indies. So make of it what you will. But WWE's been in business for like 40 years because of how they ran things. That's why they're always going to be the titan of the sport. Whether they're good or not is a different debate. They're the titan of the sport. That is the top of the pinnacle. And you have to get up to that. And nobody's ever, it's watching a guy climb up a mountain to get to where that last guy stuck the flag. TNA got pretty close, still fell off the mountain, no flag.
Rolled all the way down.
WCW, first one there, the flag was right there, right at the finish line, but unfortunately, he slipped off the flag and fell. In where AEW's climbing, they might excel past TNA. They might excel past. Will they excel past the WCW? Will they become the Titan? No, because Vince has way too much more money than these other guys do. No matter how much money they make, Vince is already ahead of the game. Like no matter what, it's just gonna be this. That's all you're doing. You're going up.
Mhm.
But in terms of the
There
product,
aren't too many people. Go ahead. Sorry, I just had a thought.
oh, I was just gonna say there's not too much of the product enough to go around. Somebody's already had their hands in the pot, so the best thing that you can do is kind of like make your product better. But having all these minds that have been in WWE, and you're talking about Chris Jericho, of one of those being the veteran minds. Chris Jericho was in WCW, always wanted to be something bigger. Saw that WWE would take their guys, and basically every guy had like I wouldn't say gimmick, but every guy had a purpose there in the WWE when he came in. Every guy from big to little, they were handed something and they loved doing it. But even Chris Jericho, after the first couple months and getting beaten around, and then finally after the first couple of years, until he said, "Oh man, I think I'm going to leave," like that was the thing. Until he said that, it was like, "Oh, there's nothing here for me." Like that's the thing. That's a couple of years in, and he was feeling like that. So you're talking about minds like Chris Jericho's, who was taught that like this, everybody had a purpose, and then when he went there and found out the real thing, now this guy is in control of a different promotion, running it his way that he thinks should be run. And then you got Cody Rhodes doing the same thing. Like all these guys are all ex-WWE guys. The way that they're running it is really how they've been taught. You know what I mean? So as far as the new generation of wrestling goes, yes and no. I still feel like it's going to be like TNA, where like you get these old heads in here, guys like Jeff Jarrett and guys like Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair that come in and they meddle in the pot. And then, they come in and make, this is how this should be run like this. Like you talk about the new generation, this is what people should see. But really, it's just one guy's opinion versus another guy's opinion. But is it really the new thing in wrestling? Or are we still going to see the same old shit because these guys came from the same place that they're saying this is new?
The same cloth that you're saying.
Exactly. They come from the same cloth. So is it new wrestling, or is it just a slogan at that point?
Right. Well, and they also know that there's things that WWE does that does draw a rating, does provide, advertising or monetary income, things like that, where they go, if we do this, then we can kind of follow that, but we can be different in the ways that it should be. So you should, lean into the things that do work and then provide an alternative for the things that you feel could be better. So I think they're trying to do a lot of different things, trying to be edgier, trying to be more hip or whatever with, the younger fans, and trying not to get caught in some of these same cliche loops that the WWE does. These things that they just do out of habit, it feels like sometimes.
I mean, like obviously guys like Orange Cassidy, like that's where I see the new. Like that's so like going back around to this poll that we were talking about, like I feel like Adam Page deserves it more because of that. Again, that 2 years that he spent since day one, where he faced Chris Jericho, lost to this old WWE guy for his belt, and hasn't gotten it back since. He deserves it more. That's a 2-year story that you're dropping and wasting on Christian Cage. And no offense to Christian Cage, as much as I love the character, that's what I'm saying. Like when you say who deserves it more, my choice is Adam Page because of that fact. Adam Page has a kid, can't be there, so Christian Cage steps in for the match. I'm okay with that. Christian Cage winning, honestly, I wouldn't be upset in the sense that it's like, man, this sucks. I'd be happy for Christian because it's like he didn't get that when he faced Randy Orton one more match and lost. Like Christian Cage and Christian are two completely different people to me. Christian Cage is the people's champion. Christian is just a peep. Like that's it. Like he's a WWE peep, dude. He goes in there and he does the job and he takes the loss. Christian Cage though is somebody that means a lot to me because watching him in TNA, like he won the world title in his terms and showed that he could be a power player. So seeing him here in this light, yes, I can see him being a power player. I'm not going to undercut him and say, "Oh, Christian Cage should be nowhere near this ring." He should, but if Kenny Omega's had this title this way and the feud has like been in the hands of him and Adam Page, they should finish it out. Christian Cage coming in and winning the belt and stomping out like that to me doesn't work unless Kenny's going to win it back eventually.
Win.
Yeah, but if he does, because it can happen, they can just say, "Okay, Christian's going to beat you this time," but you get the belt back. And when you do, and when we're ready with Adam, we'll pull the trigger. Like, that's how wrestling works. If it's not working out right now, as much as you want to bite the bullet and say, just go for it, sometimes you got to change things up. And one of those things is, okay, guy has a family, take him out, we'll put Christian Cage in. If Christian Cage wins, then obviously it's like we want to wait, to make sure that we can do this feud right. We don't want to just have Christian Cage come in and like that's it. Like, no, Kenny Omega versus Adam. They want to go back to that. They're not going to just leave it in the past. Like, they're just going to find a way to work around it for now.
Right. To answer the question in the chat too, Christian, according to Cody Rhodes, there are no faces and heels.
Yeah, there's no heels that we're facing in wrestling, but he is a face.
It's obvious that Christian is the face of the situation. If Kenny's the obvious heel, then that makes Christian the face. They can pretend that there are no good and bad guys all they want, but the truth of the matter is.
And this match ended with so Christian's music hits, they come out, they interrupt. Christian was in the ring. They leave the ring, and when they're leaving the ring, basically Kenny Omega's left like, wait, nobody cuts me off, nobody makes me bleed my own blood, and he's just doing it like in between these takes of Christian's music playing. He's like, cut the music, stop. And then it's like, so Jungle Boy cuts the music off, and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, we had an announcement to make. And then they challenged Young Bucks to Rampage for the belts. So they're gonna face the Young Bucks for the belts. And Christian challenges Johnny. I keep wanting to say Johnny Omega, dude. Kenny Omega for the Impact title. So he's gonna face him on Rampage for the Impact title. If he wins that, Impact champion, and then he could face him he's going to face him for the other belt. So will he get the other belt, or will he just become Impact champion, or none? These are the stipulations right now. So have Christian win the belt, turn him heel, and set up a triple threat between Kenny, Adam, and Christian. I mean, I would have
separate the belts,
Well, that's kind of the thing. Like, Christian wins the Impact belt, but doesn't win the AEW title. But he's still Impact champion, so he appears on AEW. It's too that's the thing. Christian is too new into the company to just do a heel turn. Like, as much as I agree with you, Austin, because we were talking AEW earlier. As far as like a triple threat with them, as opposed to Adam Page, was it? My triple threat feud that would come out of this was Kenny Omega, Adam Page, and Cody Rhodes. If they did a 4 horseman and Cody Rhodes would eventually turn, he would be the third side to the ring for that belt, But in this terms, Christian, Kenny, and Adam, I don't think would work as well. I think Christian's just honestly there to kind of fill the spot, and then he's going to fall off once Adam's good to go. Because they're going to give him a little bit of leverage, but they're not going to want to just feed this whole thing right to Christian. That's a Bret Hart move. They're not going to do that. I think Christian's going to serve his purpose in this match to prove that, I could have won it. I could have won the AEW World title, but I didn't. But I'm Impact champion, or whatever they're going to do with him. Either way, there's a purpose for him. He's going to fill a match. It's going to be a good match. But I think if they're gonna set the lights and then they're going to set the tone is they should have Kenny Omega, Adam Page World title, and that's going to be your big match. That's your big match of the year so far. I say that so far because guys like Somebody I was watching, I think it was Wrestle Talk actually, was talking about CM Punk pretty much their first Rampage or the second Rampage is going to be in Illinois, and they were talking about will CM Punk appear? Did he sign? And CM Punk said pretty much that he was doing something for heels, episode 3 or whatever. He was doing some shooting for heels. Was it
the
Showtime
show you're talking about?
Yeah, the Stephen Amell show. So he was going to be on there, and he's talking about how he's going to be on that. So basically, he told the fans, "I'm not going to be there at that show because I'm going to be doing this." But he, like I told you in that text, he didn't outright say that I didn't sign with AEW. So he's
okay.
Somebody's getting worked here.
If he's going to be there, here's the thing: he didn't say he didn't. He didn't say he did. The other part is if he says he's not going to be there and then shows up, is that a bigger thing to you?
No, don't get me wrong.
Though, right?
The advertisement is. I feel like, but the thing is, if he's going to show up, it's going to be all out. That you're not going to take your biggest pay-per-view and have to lose Adam Page. Now you're talking, if you lose Adam Page off of All Out, your biggest show, this is what you've been culminating to. You lose Adam Page because he's got a family to attend to. So it's still a big match of Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage. But again, the marquee Adam Page versus...
Not as big as it could have been.
Yeah, right. Not as big as it could have been. So what's going to fill those shoes then? Not a match, but CM Punk is going to fill those shoes. If he has signed on the dotted line and he signed past CM and he signed on the dotted line, the only way to do it, and this is the right way for me, is to do it at All Out. To do it at one of these, Rampage's first show. Wow, this is making history for Rampage. Yeah, cool. We'll see it in 10 years down the line as as a WWE. I bought out AEW. Here's in the past. Remember the first episode of Rampage when CM Punk joined type deal in the vault later on. Rampage is cool and all, having the first show, whatever, and having those guys on there. Let you guys that are already there establish that show. You don't need CM Punk coming in to cause Rampage or whatever you want to call it to call him in. Like, I think it'd be better if he doesn't show up. If he doesn't show up and he does this thing with heels, and it's basically like the FU to everybody who thought he was going to. Because, again, like I told you last time, why feed him right off the bat? And you just said this today, too. Like, you're not going to give him everything in one shot. So why give him CM Punk off of Rampage first show when the bigger, you can take a bite out of the cookie and just keep feeding people like this and be like, take a bite. Is he signed? Is he not? Take a bite.
Cookie crumbed though.
It doesn't matter. Big things like the big pay-per-views, you talk about upcoming company. This is the dollar signs right here. More money is made at the pay-per-view of him showing up than money being made at Rampage of him showing up. These are just the facts, Jack.
Okay, but money and legacy, we can go back to that point as well, is like, what's going to be better for the overall product, the overall story? Is it what's
CM Punk coming in at the biggest pay-per-view, coming back at the biggest pay-per-view for AEW is like your WrestleMania is All Out. Think about it. Think about it like that. WrestleMania. Would you rather see The Rock come back at freaking Extreme Rules or Money in the Bank, or would you rather see him come back at WrestleMania?
Win the belt. I'd rather The Rock beat Punk at Royal Rumble. So
and with the belt, yeah. All right.
No, not at all. I hate that. So.
Yes, but that's you see what I'm saying? What would you? Okay, tell me in your hindsight, since you're wearing a Punk shirt right now, would you rather see Punk at Rampage?
Yes, I'd rather him come back in front of the crowd that deserves to see him the most, because that pop. Whether it's a surprise or not, because it's in Chicago,
but All Out is in Chicago.
All Out.
It's like
okay. Oh, I thought you said Rampage was in Chicago.
No, Rampage is not in Chicago. It's like the outer skirts of whatever Chicago.
Then wait.
That's what I'm saying. Like
the heels and come back when it matters.
Like I think the whole next month basically is going to be predilated to, because once we get to September, that's when we're going to be seeing All Out. So I think it's like September 3rd and 9th. So up until then, their next few shows are going to be in the Illinois area. That's what they're doing. The surrounding areas of Illinois, that's what they're doing. They go in there, and it's like it all it is a hype train market for Punk. This whole time, you're just gonna be hearing CM Punk chants. The whole thing is like it's in Illinois. There's a lot of like when is he gonna show up? That's the thing that everybody's gonna be asking. When is he gonna show up? And then when the first time around, that's how you promote business. That's how you promote CM Punk. He is a lucrative prospect. If he signed on the dotted line and they pick him up, the best way for everybody's win and gain is All Out. You tease him, like it's like, is he here in the building tonight? What if they do that? So what if it's like, what if Tony Khan comes out or Tony Schiavone gets on the mic and is like, is CM Punk in the building tonight? Everybody wants to know, and then it's like everybody starts losing their minds because now AEW's finally kind of like giving you a little bit. At the first time they're in Illinois, they're finally giving you a little bit. Like, oh man, CM Punk, and then he doesn't show up that night. And then that's like the next like Rampage or Dynamite in Illinois, and then it's like, is he gonna show up in Dynamite? And then it's like, no, he's not here. And then it's like, it's just like when John Cena was calling out the Undertaker. You milk it for the weeks. He doesn't show. He shows up right when you least expect him, right on the pay-per-view you want him at, and you think it's done, it's over. He ain't coming out, and then he comes out.
Mm-hmm. They need to do better promos. I think everybody across the board, wrestling in general, needs to do better.
It was 7 years since Punk wrestled, right? 7 years?
That's something like that. 2014, I think. Yeah.
So 7 years is a long time. So why waste 7 years of that? If Punk is going to get back in a ring again, and this is all speculation and hearsay. This is all speculation. We don't know if Punk's on board for anything. The dude could be a jilted lover. That's it. No more wrestling. And then that's the reality of the situation. That's the real concrete thing that you have right now.
Which is strange to me that if Bryan Danielson and CM Punk hadn't signed, what do they have to gain by not coming out and saying, "Oh no, we
Well, WWE is actually sour of losing Bryan. Like they're sour. Like they don't care about Punk. They don't care about Punk or whatever, and they're gonna do a Mick Foley thing to him. Whether like reverse thing, WCW doing the Mick Foley and shitting on his title win. It's the opposite. WWE is just like gonna shit on the Punk thing. They don't care. Whatever. That's Punk. They don't care. But Daniel Bryan, they're saying that they cared about. Like they cared about losing Daniel Bryan because like they had things they want to do with him. Adam Cole again. Adam Cole has never been to the main roster. You think Triple H is just going to let that card slide? Like everybody's talking Adam Cole will probably go AEW. I don't see it. I know I was excited about it. And I was talking about all the what ifs and whatever a couple weeks back about Adam Cole. But the case in point is Triple H put so much into Adam Cole that he's just not going to let him go on NXT. He wants him on the main roster. That's why like the Undisputed Era broke up. It's one of the key like the key reasons why they're not together is because Adam Cole is meant to come up. And when he does, he's going to be a big player. So they're not going to let this guy go and let him walk just because he wants to, or that Britt Baker is his wife. Which, speaking of which, in AEW, I don't care about Britt Baker. Anybody else that does, that's fine, whatever. To me, she's like Tessa Blanchard or whatever. Like, I don't care about her. I don't. I watched her promo tonight, and it was one of these brooding, like, slow, menacing promos, and I just didn't care. So, good for Dr. Britt Baker, DMD or whatever. But I just didn't really care about what she had to say. I lost her in the first half, just like how you guys probably got lost in the first half of this. We lost her, and I just didn't care. But Adam, just because Adam Cole would want to go there to be with his wife, doesn't matter. If Triple H is going to make him a great deal, he's going to stay, and I think he's going to stay. So as far as guys being signed on AEW, I didn't really want to talk about that much this week because I just wanted to basically. As hyped as I am for the Bryan and the Punk thing, I had to ground myself this week and kind of focus on what's actually happening. So that's why I watched AEW Dynamite.
Right.
Focus on
figure out where they're going to fit in, if anywhere. That's the
exactly
other part. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So even though we were really hyped, I'm sure we'll get back on the train again once in the following few weeks. Once they start getting closer to the date, somebody's gonna pick back up.
Oh, I'm not excited for it at all. So.
Do you have anything for our closing statements? I guess since we wanted to do this day in wrestling history, but we didn't quite get there. So
I will say this. This is what I did want to say in closing. That we talked about Johnny Ace and Johnny Omega. Shout out to Steve. However, one John that we didn't talk about was Jonathan Coachman, whose birthday
is today.
And if we're going to give Shawn Michaels a shout out, we might as well give it to someone who is probably equally as important to wrestling, Jonathan Coachman, right?
Oh, as the Rock's there that he got to bully around,
his whipping boy,
his whipping boy, yeah.
So honestly,
happy birthday, Jonathan Coachman.
Yeah, Coach. Enjoy your birthday. That's all I got.
We appreciate you on ESPN. Sports Unfolded tomorrow at 6 p.m. I hope you guys give a shout out also to Jonathan Coachman for his birthday.
You guys better be giving Jonathan Coachman his due, and we'll be pointing fingers at you next.
But if you're looking to follow us, you can follow us over on Facebook at The Wrestling Den. You can go follow us on Twitter at Wrestling Den TM. Go follow our boys. They're live tomorrow at 6 p.m. at Sports Unfolded. Our hosts, as always, Ron and Eric, we thank you so much for always doing this week in and week out with us. We appreciate you guys. Don't forget to go follow at Rhode Island Broadcasting because that's what you're watching on YouTube. Don't forget to watch us on Anchor. Well, you're going to listen to us. You can't watch us there, but that's why you watch us now because we're that damn good looking. But if you don't want to watch us and see our good, nice mugs for you, then go listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, and Google Podcast. This is the Wrestling Den. You guys are the Wrestling Den is on. We appreciate you all coming out tonight, and we'll see you next week at 7 p.m.
And with that, I retire from my stand-up comedy routine.
Good. Career. Because Miss Liz doesn't want to hear any more of your Paul Walker jokes. Not tonight.